All right, I'm going to go quickly during this video lesson as promised because I know you can pause this, rewind it, and replay it anytime you want. So here are the kinds of questions that you had to do in Learning Target 3. They all were about slopes and equations of lines. So I'm going to go through 6 problems here. And I'm going to ask several questions in each problem. So the first problem, a line's equation is y equals negative 3/5 x minus 9. Now you are familiar with the slope-intercept form of an equation, y equals mx plus b, right? And you know that m is the slope, b is the y-intercept, okay? If I ask you what is this line's slope, the answer is right there in the question, negative 3/5. Not negative 3/5 x. Talked about that in our Zoom meeting on Thursday. Negative 3/5. That's the slope. It's right there. There's no work to do. What is the line's y-intercept? It's right there. Negative 9. That's the y-intercept. Not 9. Negative 9. The sign goes with the y-intercept. Okay. What is the equation of the line in the form y equals mx plus b? I would never ask that equation. If I gave you the equation of the line, I would never ask you this question. All right. So that's kind of a silly question to ask, but it's not a silly question for some of the other problems coming up. Is the point 10, negative 15 on the line? Okay. Well, if it is, I should be able to plug this ordered pair into the equation and verify that the equation really is true when I simplify it. So the negative 15 goes in for the y, negative 3/5, and in place of the x goes the 10. Okay. And then minus 9. Now, is this equation really true? I have no way of knowing until I simplify the right-hand side. Negative 15 equals, let's see, make that 10 a 10 over 1 so I can multiply these two fractions properly. Okay, multiply straight across. 3 times 10 is 30. 5 times 1 is 5. A negative times a positive is a negative. Okay, and then there's the minus 9. Okay, 30 divided by 5 is 6. So negative 6 minus 9. Negative 6 minus 9 is negative 15. So yes, the answer to this question is yes. Okay, I emphasize this again in our Zoom meeting on Thursday. You got to answer the question that I'm asking. This is a yes or no question. Okay. I mean, if I ask this question on a quiz and you do all this work and you don't tell me yes or no, you have not answered the question. And honestly, I don't know if you know whether the answer to the question is yes or no. So if it is a yes or no question, you have to tell me yes or no. Okay. Next problem. Moving along. You can replay all of that if you want to. Here's a line's equation. What is the line's slope? Hey, this equation is not in this form. So I can't answer this question yet. What's the line's y-intercept? Don't know, because the equation is not in this form. I mean, this might be the only question I ask you about an equation like this, but if I do, you're going to have to do some work to answer that question. Now, what if I ask you this question? What's the equation in this form? Okay, let's rearrange this equation to get it in this form. 6x minus 10y is equal to 30. Let's see, I need to isolate the y. So I need to deal with this x. I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. Minus 6x. Okay? I like how some people do this sort of thing. Keep the equal sign in place. I got a negative 10y is equal to 30 minus 6x. You could write negative 6x plus 30. That would be fine. Now everything gets divided by negative 10. Everything gets divided by negative 10. And we get y equals positive 30 divided by a negative 10 is a negative 3. Positive divided by negative is negative. I got minus 6x divided by a negative. A negative divided by a negative is positive. Okay, so plus 6x over 10. Okay, or you could write this as negative 3 plus 6/10 x. You can put the fraction out in front and the x next to there. There's the slope. Now I could answer this question, although this should be reduced, right? right, to 3/5. So the line slope is 3/5. And again, on the Learning Target 3 homework, I saw some people who had a problem like this. I asked them for the line's slope. They rearranged the equation and circled this. This is not the slope. This is the slope. Just 6/10, just 3/5. What's the y-intercept? Right here, -3. What is the equation of the line in this form? There it is. Okay. Quite honestly, you don't have to write the slope term first and the y-intercept term last. I would accept this answer, but if you change the order of the slope term and the y-intercept, that's fine also. Okay. And now, is the point 10 comma 2 on the line? Well, I can answer this the same way. Plug the 10 in for the y, plug the 2 in for the x, -3, and I get 10 is equal to, make that a 2 over 1, multiply the fractions, I get 6 over 5 minus 3. Wow, some fraction minus 3, no way is that going to be 10. Answer, no. Let's go on to the next problem. Okay. Notice I'm asking the same 4 questions every time. What I'm changing is the information that I'm giving to you. Okay. And you should always ask yourself, have I been given any of this information? What have I been given in this problem for the equation of the line? I've been given the slope. I've been given the y-intercept. I have not been given an x and a y to plug in. And I certainly have not been given the whole equation of the line. What is the line's slope? Hey, right there. You're told. I wouldn't even ask that. I wouldn't give you this information and then ask you to tell me what's the line's slope. That would be a silly question to ask. What is the line's y-intercept? I wouldn't ask you that either. That would be really silly. But I would ask you this question. What is the equation in the form y equals mx plus b? Just to see, do you understand that what you need to do is simply plug in the -5/3 for the m, plug in the 6 for the b, and put a box around it. Okay. And there was a question on the homework, Learning Target 3 homework, that was that easy. Okay. Is the point 6 comma 2 on the line? Well, once again, plug in the 2 for the y, -5/3, plug in the 6 for the x, plus 6, work it out. I don't know. I don't even want to spend the time in this video answering that question yes or no. But I remind you, the answer is a yes or a no. Okay. Number 4. Let's see. A slope of -2. Okay. That could be, it goes through the point 8 comma 1. Well, that's not a y-intercept. That information could be plugged in for the x and the y. At some point, that might be useful. Okay. What is the line's slope? I wouldn't even ask you that question. I'm telling you right there. What is the line's y-intercept? Oh, don't know that. It hasn't been told. And the only way I'm going to be able to find that out is to come up with the equation. Okay. Look, there are homework problems where I don't ask you to come up with the equation. I might ask you for the y-intercept, and you have to realize that there's no way am I going to be able to answer this question unless I get the equation of the line. Okay. Now, I have given you an x and a y that can be plugged in so you can find the b value. Right? So plug in the 1 for y, the -2 for the x, for the slope, -2 for the slope, the 8 for the x, plus b. 1 is equal to -16 plus b. Add 16 to both sides. 17 is equal to b. Now you could answer this question if that was the one that is asked. And now we can answer this question also. Y equals -2x plus 17. But I remind you, the answer to this question is not this equation. It's just this number. Okay. And then finally, is 6 comma 2 on the line? Well, you can't really answer that question until you have the equation. There was a question like this on last night's homework. And there was on the Learning Target 3 homework, that some of you may need to still do, or some of you may need to try again. There was a question asking you if a point was on the line, and I did not give you the whole equation of the line. And you have to know that Well, I'm going to have to take the information he gave me and find the equation of the line and then plug the 6 and the 2 in. Let's see, 2 goes in for the y, 6 goes in for the x. Is this really true? 2 is equal to negative 12 plus 17. Let's see, negative 12 plus 17 is 5. No, not true. That point is not on the line. Okay, last two problems. All right. Once again, can you answer this question here until you have an equation? No, you're going to have to come up with the equation. Okay, so you got to know that you got to come up with the equation. Even if I don't tell you to come up with the equation, you got to know that's what I got to do. All right. Did I give you the slope here? No. Did I give you the y-intercept? No. So if I ask you for the line slope, what are you going to do? The y-intercept, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to come up with the equation. But hey, you can't come up with the equation until you come up with the slope. All right. I know a lot of you will remember this formula for slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay. Which is the y2 and which is the y1? It doesn't matter. All right. But I know many of you, like me, like to subtract numbers in a way that you get nice positive answers. So here's the y values, 12 minus 9. And then you have to subtract the x's in the same direction, even if you end up getting a negative number. Well, in this case, we don't. We get a nice positive numbers in both cases. 11 halves is the slope. So now I've got the slope. And I could answer this question, right? How am I going to find the y-intercept, though? Well, again, like a previous problem, I've got a choice here. This time, I've got two ordered pairs that I could plug in for the x and the y that would help me find the slope. It shouldn't matter which one you pick. You can plug either one in and you should be able to find the y-intercept. Although some of you may be saying, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Untitled. I think I know what the y-intercept is already. And if you're thinking that, you might just be right. The point 0, 9, isn't that on the y-axis? Isn't that point the y-intercept? Sure it is. So you can actually answer this question without finding the equation of the line. It's 9. Okay? But now, if I ask you this question, you got to do a little more work. And if I ask you this question, you're going to have to find the equation of the line by plugging in one of these ordered pairs and plugging the slope in that we calculated this way. So maybe I'll take the 2 comma 12 and I'll put the 12 in for the y, and I'll put 11 halves in for the slope, and I'll put the 2 in for the x, and then plus b. Wait a minute. I know what the b is, don't I? It's 9. Wait a minute. Do I really have to do all this work? I know the slope. I know the y-intercept already. I don't really have to do this. I mean, you could. You'd find out that b is equal to 9, and then you might say, oh, duh, I already knew that. But maybe you didn't know that from here. Maybe you had to plug in the 12 and the 2 to find out that b is equal to 9. Okay. Actually, what you would get here if you simplified this equation is you would get, oh, wait a minute. Is this working out? I gotta stop here for a moment. Oh, 12 minus 9 is not 11. Holy cow, that was horrible. That was so bad. I bet a lot of you saw me make that mistake and you didn't even say anything. Hey, speak up. Okay, 3 halves is the slope. Okay, 3 halves is the slope. Okay, so if we plug in the 2 comma 12, and we put in the 3 halves, what you'd get here is you'd get 12 is equal to, the 2's cancel out, 3 plus b, then you subtract 3 from both sides, and you'd get 9 equals b. Okay, so if you didn't recognize that 9 was the y-intercept up here, you could still work it out. Okay, but if you recognize that 9 is the y-intercept, you don't have to do this work to come up with this answer. Here's the equation. Y equals 3 halves x plus 9. There you go. But you still have to write this equation to answer this question. You've got to have an equation for the line to plug this stuff into. Okay? So negative 3 goes in for the y. Negative 8 goes in for the x, plus 9. Simplify that, see if it's true. Okay, the answer is a yes or a no. Last question. Okay. I gave you two ordered pairs, and the only thing that's different between this question and question number 5 is neither one of these ordered pairs is a y-intercept. Okay. So this kind of question probably takes more work than any of the others because we need to find the slope. And once again, I'm going to do the slope by doing 7 minus 5. You know what? Just for grins, I'm going to do it the other way. 5 minus 7, and then 2 minus 11. Why? To remind you that a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Okay, so the slope is positive 2/9. What's the y-intercept? Don't know yet. Okay, I'm going to have to get the equation in order to find the y-intercept. Right? And now I have a slope, and I can plug in either this ordered pair or this ordered pair to come up with the slope. I'm going to pick this ordered pair because the numbers are smaller. You would probably do the same thing, but it shouldn't matter. So put a 5 in for the y and a 2 in for the x and the 2/9 in for the slope plus b. Okay. And so now, see, I want to make sure I did that right again. Okay. I think I did this right. Change the 2 to a 2 over 1, multiply across 4/9 plus b. Yikes, that is going to be an ugly answer when you subtract 4/9 from both sides. Probably not something I would ask you to do. So that turns out to be 4 5/9 is equal to b. Okay. Really, I don't need to make the arithmetic that difficult for you to know if you know how to do the algebra. But there's the answer. Okay, so the equation is y equals 2/9 x plus 4 5/9. And now I can plug the 1 comma 2 in here to see if 1 comma 2 is on the line. The answer is a yes or a no. And that's it. Okay. Go back and look at the Learning Target 3 homework and review it and my work and my answers before you take the exit slip. Okay, I'm done.